A peace proposal by the Trump administration that includes recognizing Russian authority over Crimea shocked Ukrainian officials, who say they will not accept any formal surrender of the peninsula, even though they expect to concede the territory to the Kremlin, at least temporarily. According to Associated Press, giving up the land that was illegally annexed by Russia in 2014 is also politically and legally impossible, according to experts. It would require a change to the Ukrainian constitution and a nationwide vote, and it could be considered treason. Lawmakers and the public are firmly opposed to the idea. It doesn't mean anything, said Oleksandr Merezkho, a lawmaker with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's party. We will never recognize Crimea as part of Russia. Unlike a territorial concession, a formal surrender would permanently relinquish Crimea and abandon the hope that Ukraine could regain it in the future. The Ukrainian public largely understands that land must be ceded as part of any armistice because there is no way to retake it militarily. Polls indicate a rising percentage of the population accepts such a trade-off. But much of the public messaging about land concessions has suggested that they are not necessarily permanent, as when Kiev Mayor Vitalii Klitschko told the BBC recently that Ukraine may need to temporarily give up land as part of a peace deal. U.S. President Donald Trump underscored the Crimea proposal in an interview published Friday in Time magazine. Crimea will stay with Russia. Zelensky understands that, and everybody understands that it's been with them for a long time. His comments offered the latest example of the U.S. leader pressuring Ukraine to make concessions to end the war while it remains under siege. Trump has also accused Zelensky of prolonging the war by resisting negotiations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Crimea, a strategic peninsula along the Black Sea in southern Ukraine, was seized by Russia years before the full-scale invasion that began in 2022. The Russian takeover followed large protests that ousted former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, who had refused to sign an association agreement with the European Union. In the lead-up to peace talks, Ukrainian officials told the Associated Press for months that they expect Crimea and other Ukrainian territory controlled by Russia to be among Kiev's concessions in the event of any deal. But Zelensky has said on multiple occasions that formally surrendering the land has always been a red line. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in the backdrop of Pope Francis' funeral, where the pontiff was laid to rest at St. Mary Major Basilica on Saturday. According to Associated Press, it comes as U.S. President Donald Trump and Zelensky met privately on the sidelines. A photo showed the two men sitting alone, facing one another and hunched over on chairs in St. Peter's Basilica, where Francis often preached the need for a peaceful end to Russia's war in Ukraine. Trump said on Saturday that he doubts Russia's Vladimir Putin wants to end his war in Ukraine, expressing new skepticism that a peace deal can be reached soon. Only a day earlier, Trump had said Ukraine and Russia were very close to a deal. There was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities and towns, over the last few days, Trump said in a social media post as he flew back to the United States after attending Pope Francis' funeral at the Vatican. Trump also hinted at further sanctions against Russia. According to Vatican estimates, some 250,000 people flocked to the funeral mass at the Vatican and 150,000 more lined the motorcade route through downtown Rome to witness the first funeral procession for a pope in a century.
Yes. But in Kyiv, that light voltage.
But I'm pushing hard. I'm sure we can continue this way, really.
Mr. President, how did the meeting with Trump go?
Really, we had productive meeting. I don't want to go to a lot of details, if it's possible, because the questions, very sensitive questions, of course, totally it's about how to bring peace closer and how was resultative, positive Paris and London, and we want to continue such meetings to bring peace to Ukraine.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met on Saturday before the funeral service for Pope Francis in the Vatican, according to Zelensky's press office. According to Associated Press, White House Communications Director Stephen Chung confirmed the meeting and said they met privately today and had a very productive discussion. More details about the meeting will follow, he said. Shortly after arriving in Rome last Friday, Trump said on social media that Ukraine and Russia should meet for very high-level talks on ending the three-year war sparked by Russia's invasion. His envoy, Steve Witkoff, met with Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier Friday, and Trump said both sides were very close to a deal.